Hello, everyone. I'd like to introduce the fabulous Leanne Jenkins from My Naturopath. Obviously, she is a natural therapist and she works here in Albury in a multidisciplinary clinic. And you're in Englehart Street, aren't you?
That's correct. Yeah, and work with some beautiful women.
Yeah.
Well, actually, there isn't a guy to be seen, but we just are all very much on the same page, sort of. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's great. It's a lovely old building too.
Mm.
Now, Leanne, you have been a practitioner since 1996, yeah?
Yes.
It's a little bit of a time there. And you've been involved in health really from childhood. You were raised by a very health conscious mum, yeah?
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And she guided basically us from a very early age. But I really believe my passion for health probably was very much sparked by that path she led us down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Thank you. It's great. So the reason that I've invited you to be interviewed actually is one of my listeners contacted me and said, Karen, can you get somebody to talk about water? So that's what prompted me. I thought of you immediately because, what other people won't know is that I've had conversations with you about water and I've got myself a filter thing that's in my shower to take out all the nasties. And I got onto that through you. So I've got lots of questions and, let's just flow with wherever this sort of takes us. But just maybe to get started, can what do you want to tell us about water and how important that is in terms of our health? Where should we begin?
No, look, for me, it began, decades ago, and I didn't realize how passionate I was about the quality of our water because I believe it, you know, the quality comes first and
Yeah.
then the quantity comes second. So, I grew up in a small local town where we had water from our water reservoir, and it was in the days where a lot of chlorine wasn't used then.
Mm.
And along the way, it was, but it certainly wasn't fluoridated. And then I moved to another country town after 4 years in Melbourne of having this amazing water where it didn't matter who it was from a tourist point of view, they'd come in and say, oh my God, this is such beautiful water.
Mm.
And then they went to a chlorine situation. And then I'm, coming back to Albury, and then you realize with the taste of how bad chlorine is, and that unknown taste that you're also getting fluoride at the same time,
Mm.
let alone the other 23 to 24 chemicals that a municipal water supply would put in there to legally get it where they want it to be from a pH point of view or a filtration point of view.
Mm.
So this takes us down a rabbit hole of why it is so important to get it right.
Yeah. I mean, me straight away, when you talk about fluoride and getting it to the level that they want, I immediately think about the pineal gland, which is so important for our spirituality, our intuition, being connected to everything. And I
Yes.
mean, fluoride is said to actually cause it to atrophy or calcify. And I just think, what?
Well, if you imagine it, for people who don't know where the pineal gland, it's probably if you went straight there and straight into the middle, it's going to be right in that middle section where those two lines meet. And it
Mm.
looks like a tiny little pine cone, but what makes up that tiny little pine cone is crystals. And they have little cilia, like hair-like projections on them. And you want them to be able to move because they um, electrically conduct electricity through our brain. And what the fluoride does is it interferes with the ability to move and therefore be able to pick up electrical signals. Because what we're doing is we're picking up electrical signals from the actual universe and all around us So that's a source of information for our brain and our ability to access other dimensions from an information point. So the more we have fluoride, the more it calcifies and stops that connection.
Yeah.
So we could go down rabbit hole with that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a whole new podcast.
We'll pop that one over there. Yeah, because that's just kooky. There's so many, like you said, there's so many little side lanes that we could go down with that. Why
Yeah.
we're doing something that we know causes
Yes.
people to get dumbed down and so on. But let's stay with let's stay on the main road for the moment.
Right. We can do that. Well, look, I'm not sure if people realize too with chlorine, chlorine is, they put it in the water to use it as an antibacterial. And when we use an antibacterial with it, it's just killing off, whatever's come in the water supply from, whatever.
Dead cat food.
A dead animal or something like that. Who knows what's fallen in the water supply? But chlorine is actually associated with different cancers. The more you drink chlorine, the more likely you're going to have a bladder cancer or colorectal cancers.
Mm.
Yeah. And for many people, and just depending on the town, it'll also come in stronger layers with levels, and you can actually smell it and taste it. And some towns have got it right in terms of taste, and certainly some haven't. Originally, I was in a little town that didn't have chlorine, and their first option actually was going to UV light, and they used UV light for their antibacterial. But ultimately, they said they just couldn't get the water quality to the standard needed via that method. Yeah, they were doing it for a while. And then, of course, they put the chlorine in, and everyone went, oh, yuck.
Yeah, terrible.
And then, the one that has become quite prevalent and on the mainstream news lately, well, in the last 6 months, is the PFAS, or the persistent forever chemicals. And they are basically in Australia's water supply, all across the world. So, in higher levels of contamination than they actually should be.
Yeah, I can see someone popping up.
Oh, look, it was better than whinging. He wasn't listening.
Do we get to have a look? Oh, too ridiculously cute. We know who runs the show at your place.
Yes. And then look, the other one that's a contaminant I find that's pretty horrible too in water is the microplastics as well.
Yeah.
And just depending on storage, we might be on town water, but has that come through plastic pipes? Has it been stored in plastic tanks? And then we put, if we don't know enough, we put it in a plastic water bottle. And we end up with those micro fine amounts of plastic in there that just contribute to hormonal disruption.
Yeah. Wow, that's a whole story in and of itself, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest issue for us? We want to be healthy. And that's a really big thing. Even like looking at numerology for this 2025, the year ahead, this whole year, the underlying energy is all about, the spiritual journey. And for so many of us, that is very, very much linked in with our physical health and being on the journey of improving health and fitness too. Um, so from a water perspective, what do you think is the most important thing for us to consider when we're looking at water quality?
Filtration.
Yeah.
Full stop filtration. What you can do with water after that is an absolute bonus, but get it right from a filtration point of view. And, that key component, which would I say is more important to get out of water versus, if we were talking chlorine versus fluoride, definitely get the fluoride out.
All
And
right.
this is where I think, many people are aware that filtration needs to happen. But unless you have a certain membrane level, the fluoride molecule is so small, it's not going to get it out. So your typical water jug that you would have, Jerry,
You're looking for one, aren't you?
what with that, if you don't get that fluoride out, because it messes with the pineal gland, and just hardens it and just shuts us down from a dimensional spirituality, our ability to access different levels of consciousness, it's huge. There's also, studies that came through from the Second World War when they utilized it in concentration camps to lower IQ.
Yep.
And lower the resistance to think for themselves.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So how important is it? Absolutely. We'll get the old argument from the dentist of you need fluoride in the water. One, it's the wrong type of fluoride. Yes, we need fluoride for our teeth, but it's not the type of fluoride that's actually put in water, which happens to be a toxic chemical where they actually have to wear hazmat suits to add it to the water. And it has the poison label on it. If you clean your teeth with a fluoridated toothpaste, it will have a warning later on that label. If you swallow this, you need to call poisons center.
Wow.
Yes. So number one, fluoride. Your little jar or your jug on the bench is not going to do that because the membrane is not fine enough. It'll get some taste stuff out. It'll be what they call a COT filter, which is color, odor, and taste in terms of chlorine. They'll get that right, but you're not going to get the fluoride out. So to me, you can do it at the kitchen tap and you can filter there. Or for some people, in an ideal world, my next thing on the wish list is a whole house filtration.
Yeah.
Then I'm not bathing in it, which
Yeah.
I have a filter like you on my shower anyway. But then I can sit in the bath. I don't have a bath because I do not want to sit myself in that amount of fluoride or chlorine.
Yeah.
Okay. You might have seen on TikTok or Insta or one of those, and people will take 2 glasses of water out of a kitchen sink tap. And one they will put their fist in, and the other they will put chlorine drops in. And the color of the water will go this yellow in terms of seeing the chlorine in it. Okay. They take their fist out, they put the chlorine drops into the other glass of water, and nothing's there because it's already here.
Oh,
Absorbed
wow.
into the skin. So it happens that fast. So will I stick myself in a bath for half hour? I don't think so.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So if we look at that, in terms of what we're doing to our little kids and that sort of thing on a daily basis when we wash them, it's not ideal. So a whole house filter that would get rid of the chlorine and fluoride from there, we are then watering our fruits and veg nicely. We're bathing and showering in a non-toxic gas chamber.
Yeah, exactly. I've actually noticed the difference.
Yeah.
You know, there's no smell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever open up your washing machine and almost get knocked over by the chlorine fumes? That's what I find really, really disgusting. It's just because I suppose, maybe look, I'm probably thinking the majority of my life, and I'm talking decades and decades here, I have not had chlorine or fluoride.
All right.
So the moment I open that washing machine door, I'm just like,
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So quality, absolute number one thing we have to do.
Mm, yeah.
Then we go to quantity.
Talk to us about that.
All right. So if we're talking quantity, it's really interesting because there are always going to be the factors of, is it a hot day? What level of exercise are you doing? Are you sick? So if we take those factors out and we just stick to, how much you need for the day to day, it's about 30 to 35 mils per kilo of body weight.
Right. I'm
So
going to write it down.
let's do, a 50 kilo light little person is going to be drinking around about the 1.5 to the 1.7 liters of water.
Mm,
Mm,
wow.
yeah. So you add more kilos on, you need more water. Yeah. Add hot day, you need more water. More exercise, more water. So
Mm,
most of us are actually living in a dehydrated state on
yeah.
a day-to-day basis.
Wow. I've heard that the water that you get better water uptake if there's a little bit of salt in the water. What's
I wouldn't use iodized salt. If you want to do that, yes, it helps because if you think back to science days, I don't know
osmosis?
exactly. If you've got a pure water versus whether it's, in our cells, in our bloodstream, full of solutes, it's not the pure water coming here, right? We want that to be able to cross easily. And we can do that by adding a little bit of Celtic sea salt, Himalayan salt. Some of those lovely non-refined sea salts are just beautiful.
Mm,
And the other one we can, add a little dash of is, add a little bit of lemon juice, add a little bit of, fresh juice. Just not so it's overwhelming, but it gives us that little bit of hint of a glucose molecule, which will just go process into our system
okay.
as well. Mm,
Right. Okay. Zips
mm.
over quicker.
Yes.
Yeah. I've noticed that, I had a little play with that, and when I added some sea salt in, just a tad, I got thirsty quickly. So it showed me that I was quite dehydrated.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. And,
Interesting.
and the other thing to look for, Karen, is, if you're drinking water and then rushing to the toilet all the time, it's just going in and through. It's not crossing and staying in the system to the level that it should.
Yeah.
Mm.
So a bit like a permaculture system, we've got to keep the water in the soil.
Oh, I love that. Straight back to the garden version. Yes, yes, absolutely. So, and part of what we forget is, parts of our body can be up to nearly 85% water. So, if we're talking our brain, that is one of the things that is so fragile in terms of being easily influenced by the lack of water.
Mm.
And, you know, as people age, our ability to want water or to drink becomes diminished. So often we trip into becoming easily dehydrated. But, you know, for someone who's quite elderly, they will actually mimic confusion and dementia symptoms, and they're just dehydrated.
Yeah.
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 I'm aware a couple of years ago I went and did a survival course, and it
Go
was
you.
very interesting actually. And these guys are based in WA, so a lot of, and they train, you know, people who go out and save people and stuff. But they were sharing some scenarios, and we had to, um, you know, they gave us all the details and the maps and things like that, and asked us what we would do. And one of the scenarios, sadly, I found out later that these were actually things that really happened. But, you know, one of the situations was a person actually died from dehydration with a bottle of water in their hand, because you get so confused, that your brain can't process logical information. For example, if you're in the desert, you've got a radiator, you've got water,
Mm.
you know, and people are sipping water. It's not getting to the brain so that they can actually process information logically.
Mm.
It's just incredible.
Yeah. And you know, the other one I find that's so easily seen in terms of, you know, what comes through on a blood test is people's kidneys and the impact of long-term dehydration. So, you know, your blood test, you'll have um, a result that'll have little e and then in capitals GFR. So that's your glomerular filtration rate, which is the rate of filtration through the kidneys. And it'll have a score. And ideally, your score should be over 90. And the score is relevant to the percentage function of your actual kidneys. So you get down to 15%, you're looking at being on dialysis, okay?
Oh,
But a doctor will tell you that 50% is okay, or 50. The score is 50 is okay. But if you're happy with a 50% filtration rate through your kidneys,
wow.
yes. So what I see is, you know, someone who tells me they're drinking enough water, but I look at that score and I also use a dipstick, like a urinary testing indicator that I dip into their urine. And one of those ones, it talks about the SG. The SG is specific gravity, and are they drinking enough water to dilute the solids that are in their urine? So we can look at our wee and go, oh, wow, that's a bit dark, or that's a bit over yellow, or you know, but basically it should be the color of something like a manila folder, you know, so it's quite, there's not a lot of color to it.
Mm.
And if you held it up, you know, it's quite clear, it's not cloudy and that sort of thing. But that's your first visual step. Then you can dipstick it and see whether, yes, I don't, it's the right color, but I'm still not drinking enough. And
Yeah.
then you can look at your blood tests as well, and you get a good indicator of, you know, kidney function and how it relates to your water consumption.
Yeah. Wow.
Mm.
Ooh, a lot to it, isn't there?
Well, those two things, you know, your quality first and then your quantity, that it would be the absolute base level for anyone who wants to work with water.
Yeah.
And then we start getting, you know, that little bit more esoteric and really interesting.
Mm. Yeah.
So, you know, when we were talking about the pineal gland, with Joe Dispenza's work. You know, he does some amazing things, and you can read some of his books in terms of how integral the pineal gland is for us as human beings to transform and spiritually ascend. Without that pineal gland being uncalcified and having its lovely little crystalline cilia working, you know, we're going to struggle to have or even be able to access different dimensional realms, or having that information, our intuition, our ability to create, all to come in through the electrical signals that go into our brain.
Right. Wow.
So, you know, again, you know, that comes back to the quality of the water. And therefore the ultimate health of our pineal gland.
Yeah. And our lives.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And, you know, if we went back to the physicality of the pineal gland too, it is the producer of melatonin. Melatonin helps us sleep.
Yeah.
Melatonin detoxes our brain. So, you know, there's some beautiful things that our little pineal gland can lead us to.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the quality of the water again, and, you know, the question mark about rainwater and tank water.
Oh, nice one. Yeah.
How does that relate within this, you know, conversation about quality?
All right. I often test my clients' rainwater, because if someone drinks rainwater, they're like, you know, what sort of water do you drink? Oh, I drink rainwater. And once I would have been going, but now when I test the rainwater from a pH point of view, I have to get a different scale, because my tester only goes to 4. Now, let's rewind to people's knowledge of pH. So it is going back to your science days of acid and alkaline bases, okay? So at one end of the scale, you've got 0. At the other end, you've got 14. 7 is in the middle, and we call that, even though it's in the middle, we call it neutral or alkaline, right? And then so what we want to be able to have is legally water supply will be 7. So if I dipstick, you know, over water, I expect to see it's 7. Rainwater is 4, which is really, really acidic. So what contributes to that? Well, what is in the air contributes to that. These days, there's a lot of, you know, minerals floating from farming. You know, it's in the dust, it's in the air. And then, of course, we have the phenomenon of cloud seeding, where weather is manipulated and that. And we have heavy metals that are in the atmosphere from that. So for someone who's drinking rainwater, you're drinking a very acidic but unknown toxins as well.
That's a little scary.
Extremely. Extremely. So how does that impact? If you're consistently drinking something that is acidic, your body is constantly having to counteract that.
Yeah.
Our blood is a pH of 7.35. It has, and it will protect that pH in our blood constantly. If we don't buffer that through, you know, beautiful, fresh food, salads, veggies, low stress, that pH swings towards a 7. If we got to a 7, we'd actually go into a coma and die. Okay, so the body's constantly working towards not pushing us towards that 7. So what it does to counteract that is it dumps magnesium from our muscles and calcium from our bones, and maybe grab some potassium or whatever along the way, dumps it into our bloodstream, and that brings the pH back. The downstream consequence of that is acidic urine.
Yeah.
So if we're drinking tank water from rainwater, we're looking at a pH of an acidic drink coming into us on a consistent basis. If we look at soft drink, we're looking at a pH of 2.
Wow.
Okay. The other factor we've got to look at is, how is that rainwater stored? Now, once it would have either been the old galvanized tin.
Yeah.
So you have interaction of metal with the water and an increase of those metals in that water that's being drunk. And some of that is not ideal. Tins are classed as a heavy metal. The next one would have been concrete. And again, there's some interaction there, but it's more likely to actually make your rainwater more alkaline.
The concrete is?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And then these days, everything's stored in plastic. So you've got, your big poly tanks. Yep. And, even the big poly tanks out on a farm would have like a liner. So you're in plastic, you're stored in plastic. You've got that microplastic degradation happening. Yeah.
So rainwater is actually quite unhelpful. Wow.
And yet our plants still manage to thrive at times,
Yeah. Wow. They're doing so much more work than you think.
Oh, they are doing so much more. We need to really support them.
Yeah, right. Wow. So we think that we're doing great things by growing our own veggies, and to some degree we are.
Yep.
But if they had water that wasn't acidic, all full of chlorine and fluoride,
it would take our quality of our plants and our fruits and our veggies to a whole new level.
Yeah.
I think at some stage we're probably going to have to end up doing food production undercover, which is not my ideal way of doing it at all, but to stop that level of toxicity that's coming in.
Yes, from the sky.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's isn't it?
I know. It's like you talk about water, and it's like, let's open that can of worms.
Yeah, right. You think I didn't think it would be so disappointing. There's obviously, to really get good quality, it sounds like there's a number of steps. So, if we could, and that's the big question, if we could, because there's dollars and cents involved in that, and not everybody has the opportunity to have control over a property to the degree that they could invest in one to that level. Because I imagine it'd be relatively expensive to put in a whole house filtration system.
I had a plumber who was a client, and he reckoned he'd done it for $5,000. So I thought it would be more than that. But look, he is a plumber. He probably gets things at a cheaper price and that sort of thing. So I really don't know what the ballpark on that is, but I would like to explore that. I would definitely like to explore that.
And he didn't have to pay for a plumber.
That always makes a difference, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, it certainly does. So in a perfect world where we could have whatever we wanted, a whole house filtration system, and then once we've got all the nasties out, what would we be looking at then?
It's really interesting because you can look at it from a different couple of points.
Yeah.
And one that I personally use is I actually turn the water into ERW, which is electrolyzed reduced water or molecular hydrogen water.
Right.
Now, so what happens in the process of that? So it goes through an ionizer and it goes over 8 titanium plates, and the water molecule, which is H2, so you've got 2 hydrogens and an oxygen, it gets split into an OH and a H. So when I hold up my water bottle of my water, it is just a swirling mass of micro bubbles of hydrogen. Now, for anyone who is a bit on the nerdy side and loves their science, they can go into PubMed and look up ERW, and there's just tons of studies on all different health aspects as to how that molecular hydrogen water can help health. And, you know, I just know what my clients tell me in how they feel, what's changed for them. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. So that's one of your ways you can work with it. And the current ionizers, and I use it, also can adjust your pH. And the pH then gives you about 68 different uses of your water. So, for example, if you're using pH 11, which it's not one that you would typically drink, but your pH 11 is an emulsifier. So you can spray it on any fatty surfaces like your oven or your cooktop or whatever, and clean with water. So there's no chemicals involved at all. The other thing that, and this has got some PubMed studies to back it up, is you put your fruit and veg into 11.5 for about 15 minutes, and it will take off 85% of the residual chemicals of sprays or herbicides or pesticides off your. Do you want me to grab my strawberries? I've just got my strawberries soaking at the moment.
Yeah, sure.
I'll show you.
Oh dear. Just while Leanne's getting her strawberries, I actually have tasted some of her bubbly water, and it is nice. What I noticed is that when I drank some, I got thirstier straight away. I had issues with the strawberries. Oh, yeah.
Can you see the color of the water?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dirty.
Yep. So they're commercial strawberries.
Ah.
And that's what's coming off them, just purely from what goes on them.
So it's just sitting in that water, and
Yep.
it's off the chemicals, and that's
Yep.
the colour. Wow.
So that's what you could do with, say, 11.5. And then there's 5 different pHs you can choose. You can choose a 2.5, which acts as an antibacterial or antimicrobial. So all of a sudden, you don't need to do anything from a chemical point of view where you would normally use on a wound, on a surface area, anything like that. And even some pests with plants, you can spray it on them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So multiple uses. 68. You want the details? I can send you a PDF on it, believe.
We'll leave your contact details in the
yes, we could do that. We could do that.
Yeah. So that's pretty full on.
Well, the other way too that there is if we're talking, and you off camera when we're talking about structured water, and so if you look at the work of Gerard Pollack, And he came up with this terminology called the fourth phase of water. So as we know, water can be a variety of different structures. So it has that. It can be a liquid, it can be a solid, it can be a gas. Okay. And they were the three phases. So the fourth phase is almost like a gel. Yeah. And this can be known as structured water too.
Ah.
But there's another structured water where we use a vortex to give it a different electrical and magnetic property as well.
Yeah.
So, you can take water to all different levels. And some of the people who have shown us what water is capable of would be, Masaru Emoto.
Yeah.
So for those people who don't know about this amazing Japanese scientist, he believed that if we spoke or played positive music or words to water, that water had the ability to take on the energy of whatever was going on. And he would freeze the water and have beautiful crystalline structures appear in the water if it was a positive thing. Now, he then showed the inverse of that by using polluted water or the word that had negative connotations like hate or murderer or anything like that. And that totally changed the crystalline structure of the water.
Amazing. The photographs in his book.
Yes. For someone who's never looked at them, please go and do, because it's just crazy what came out of that. So, the takeaway from that point would be our thoughts and our words actually influence the quality of our water, and therefore we can influence our health. So, if you take your water bottle and you write love on it, the vibration of love, if we then crystallize that water, would have beautiful crystalline structures in it. So when we look at, and this was an interesting one recently, some of the cans of soft drink that are called Mother or Murder. Yes. Yeah. So yes, there's a whole lot of words that you probably wouldn't want the structured liquid coming out of those. Yeah. Then we've got people like Veda Austin, who's a Kiwi, and she got into crystallography. So she has developed a technique where you have the water in a Petri dish, and you can put an image beside it for 30 seconds, and then you have a particular way of freezing the water, and the image of what the water sat next to will appear in the water crystal.
Wow.
Yes.
That is super cool.
That is so cool. So she, and just let me double check I'm right with that. Yeah. So she calls it collective molecular photography. Right. And she does it via the process of crystallography. And you can actually do some lessons, classes on know how to do this. But she basically says that water is an intelligent being, and it shows us our highest potential. So she has taken things like a sunflower seed and she's put it beside the water and expecting that the water would have frozen and shown an image of the sunflower seed. Instead, what it showed was a sunflower.
Oh my God, that's beyond belief almost, isn't it?
Yeah. And she did this with flax seeds and apple seeds as well.
Wow.
And she's done this hundreds and hundreds of thousands of times.
And it's all documented and evident.
Yeah.
Far out.
So, um,
You're not learning that in our schools, are we?
no, well, you would be if I went back to teaching these days, I tell you. So she ultimately believes water holds memory. And from a homeopathic point of view, if you know much about homeopathy, we've known that for a long time. That it will remember shapes, symbols, energies it's exposed to. So if it's exposed to 5G and what it shows, that energy looks like. Whoa, you really don't want to be close to that.
Wow.
So the other thing that she can do, she also interviewed a chappie who was Hawaiian, who has a very interesting belief that's come through, the traditional oral teachings that also gels with a woman whose name is, let me get it right because it's a mouthful, Rainey Marie Hiley. And she wrote a book called The Water Code.
I've heard of that, yes.
Okay. Now, so what this, I've forgotten the New Zealand, is it New Zealand? Sorry, Hawaiian guy's name is. But basically, they say the Akashic records are in the water.
Yeah.
So the planet's history is in the water.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, wow. So our entire world for generations upon thousands of years is in our water. Now, that is a rabbit hole when that really starts to blow my mind. Yeah. So it's a very interesting read to have a look at that or explore some of that work. So when you start exploring water as a topic, it's not just water. It's
It's life,
just
history, it's everything.
it's so much. It's absolutely so much. So this is why I get a bit nerdy about my quality of water, because that's coming into us, that's going to influence our physicality, but our spirituality, but it has been influenced by history as well. Therefore, it's going to influence our future.
Yeah. Wow. I want to go read that book now.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll have a chat when we've.
Well, look, the other one too that's amazing too, and this goes back to a physical point of view versus a spiritual point of view. This is your body's many cries for water. You're not sick, you're thirsty. Don't treat thirst with medication. That is an amazing book from a physicality point of view. I'd highly recommend that.
Who wrote that one?
That one, I'm going to spell it for you. He's a doctor, and his last name is Batman Gaheldij, BATMANGHELIDJ.
Okay, thank you for spelling that. I understand completely now.
And then another one, which is on my bucket list, well, it's not on my bucket list, it's on my soon to be here list. Veda Austin just wrote a book called The Living Language of Water. And then my other favorite is, of course, if someone's never read it, and in terms of the pineal gland, good old Joe Dispenza, Becoming Supernatural. And that goes into the whole pineal gland health and how that works and that sort of thing. So that's just some nice little resources for someone who wants to take water or their knowledge of water to a whole new level. And of course, Emoto's book was Messages from Water.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So the takeaways at this point,
Yes.
filter the heck out of it,
Yes. Correct.
get rid of that chlorine,
Yes.
do what you can to get rid of the fluoride.
Correct.
In a perfect world, get a whole house sort of filtration system,
Yes.
if possible. And once you've done that, then look at, the energetics of the water.
Yeah. Yeah. You can look at the molecular hydrogen. If you've got the hydrogen in the water, you can do whatever you want after that. You can hold it next to you can write on it the love, the gratitude, it doesn't have to be a really expensive thing. If you don't have something that's got molecular hydrogen, you can just at least write on your water bottle, get it out of plastic.
Mm,
Get it into, like a stainless steel. Just
yeah.
get it out of plastic for a start.
Do you think stainless steel is the glass is better than such stainless steel? What's your take on that?
Definitely better. It's glass tends to be more inert. Yeah. The other thing from a hydrogen point of view, it doesn't escape glass. It will escape metal and plastic.
Right. Okay.
Mm,
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Questions?
Questions. I think I'm going to have questions developing.
Yes.
Mm.
It's a lot to take in.
It is a lot to take in, and it feels a bit as though we've only just touched the surface as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this might be a watch this space. Maybe we'll have another chat.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I feel like I've said that to everybody I've interviewed. It's like
It
in
doesn't surprise me, Karen. It
yeah,
doesn't. I just think, for many things, and many people that you would probably interview, they're in a field where it doesn't stay stagnant.
yeah,
There's constantly new information coming in, there's new experiences that
yeah,
we can tell or share with people. It's just a moving field of knowledge.
yeah. Just out of curiosity, um, and this is sort of a little bit to the side, is as a naturopath, you're dealing with people with a myriad of conditions. And you've spoken about having lived in different places where the water supply has been different. Have you, I suppose this is a dumb question in a sense, but have you noticed a difference in the health conditions that are showing up in terms of the impact of the water?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, mm,
Probably a hard question, isn't it?
it is. I can give you an example of a chappie who, and
Yeah,
I had no idea this was going to happen. I'd like to think that it would happen, but I just had no idea. So, when we talked about the GFR, kidney filtration rate.
yeah,
So this chappie had a kidney filtration rate of a score of 55. So therefore, his kidneys are at 55% functionality.
yeah.
And he bought himself an ionizer with molecular hydrogen. When he had his blood tests done recently, now he's only had the machine for, I'm going to say 18 months,
Yeah.
and his kidney score was 88. So
Wow.
normally you would never expect an increase like that in the functionality of your kidneys. So changing the quality of your water has such an impact on the functionality of your body cells.
Yeah.
So when I look at other things where, people have had reflux, that's another good one because that's so common. and people change their quality of water, their reflux goes.
Right.
So, can I say that I've noticed a population with a certain problem? Probably not. It's too diverse.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting study, though. I've just done some, just before Christmas, I asked for 3 volunteers to come in, and I have a machine that does the body composition analysis, looking at fat, looking at muscle, but also looking at intracellular and extracellular health, or hydration. So I've never actually tested anyone who'd been drinking molecular hydrogen water. So they were new people onto it. And I tested one of them so far at 3 weeks. But she hadn't had a change in her intracellular health or hydration level. However, symptomatically, she had. So I always believe the symptoms change before you really see that big, deep level of cellular health happen. One was sick, and one found the water. She started too high a level because I was asking them to drink 2 liters a day, and she could only cope with the water at 2 cups, and then had to use normal water to make up the. Yeah, so she probably would have taken a month before she would have got to 2 liters, because it was detoxing her too fast.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right.
So, and there's a chappie, I think he's a Japanese surgeon, and he came up with the process for colonoscopies. So what he does is he puts people on molecular hydrogen water prior to a colonoscopy, because it has the ability to break down the impact of feces in the bowel.
Yep.
Which is what you want, and that's why you go on those preparations prior to a colonoscopy, so you can have a look at the bowel wall. But what he would do is, if he saw polyps or something a bit nastier in someone's bowel, he would make them go and buy a molecular hydrogen ionizer, because people who are on that water don't have reoccurrences of bowel polyps.
Wow.
That's what he has found.
All right.
So, how much can change in our health when we get our water.
Yeah. So the hydrogenized, I'm saying that right, aren't I? Hydrogenized.
Yep.
Do you think that's, I know there's quite a lot of studies, do you think that's the water to be having? Because there's a few different versions, isn't there, of best water?
Look, I think, people are going to find what they believe is their best water.
Yeah.
Certainly hydrogen water's got the proof in the pudding, if you're talking scientific studies, results driven, that sort of thing. But, some people will take a water, they call it wild in their water. And so they take their container up to Mount Buffalo, and they get it from the stream there. And that's beautiful, because water has that living, flowing energy, which will also change the pH as well.
Yeah.
Am I a little bit paranoid these days about Chiari and some of those things that come via poo from deers? Absolutely. So would I be doing it? Probably not. But a flowing stream is always going to have a whole different level of energy to water that's come through pipes that have right angles, that are stored in plastic, are stored in tank,
Yeah.
So there's so many different levels, and I think honestly, what you intend with your water is always going to make a difference.
Yeah.
You can just, in the background, there's other things that can be done as well.
Yeah. Mm. Fantastic.
Mm.
Thank you so much for your time. I think we probably need to wrap it just from a time perspective, actually.
We
Um,
probably do.
yes, we probably do. Um, what can I say? Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and just shooting the breeze about water. I know it's given me a lot to think about, and probably lots of ways to spend some money, you know,
Oh,
just from a health perspective and
yeah.
longevity and all that.
Well, just start, gratitude, love, write it on your water bottle,
Yeah,
you know, abundance, something beautiful, something positive. Play beautiful music to it.
yeah,
It'll respond. You've got all those amazing places in the world that, like Lords, the
mm,
well at Lords. And there's different spots like that in the world that structurally the water that comes from there is different, you know? It is like it's blessed.
yeah,
So we can do very basic things, spending no money. We can spend some money and take it to a whole new level. But let's start small.
yeah, exactly. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Leanne.
You are welcome, my dear.
Take care, and I'll see you again soon, I'm sure. Thanks for your
Lovely. Thank you.